Welcome to our review on distillation. What we're going to do in this video is have a look at two different types of distillation. The first one is simple distillation. In order to carry out simple distillation, we set up our equipment as in the diagram on the right. Now, this is what we would use if we're trying to separate a solvent from its solution. The key point about this though is that the solvent must have a lower boiling point than the solute itself. If the solute had a lower boiling point, then that would evaporate before our solvent, and therefore this wouldn't work. So what we actually find is, with our solution in the actual round bottom flask there, we then heat it with a Bunsen burner, and then what we find is that the solvent becomes a gas, rises up, and then it's directed down that tube, which is called a condenser. What we actually have, you can see in the diagram there, is cold water that flows along the outside there, and that means that as the warm gas passes through the condenser, it gets cooled and it goes through condensation. So it's going to condense and then just drip out the bottom into the test tube where we can collect it. The second type of distillation is fractional distillation. Now we're going to come back to this again later in our chemistry course, but we're just going to get a basic understanding of how this technique works at this point. The whole idea of fractional distillation is that we can use it to separate two or more substances from a mixture when they're both in the liquid state. So these liquids are miscible, or they're dissolved in each other. The key thing about it though is that those two substances must have different boiling points. And to carry it out, we've got a slightly different setup in our equipment there. We've got a round bottom flask still, but connected to that we have this item called a fractionating column. The fractionating column then connects onto the condenser, just like in our simple distillation. So what we see here in our example on the right, we've got an ethanol water mixture. So ethanol's got a boiling point of around 78 and water is 100 degrees. So what actually happens as we heat it, ethanol is going to turn to a gas first. It's going to rise up through the fractionating column and then pass down the condenser, where it's going to change to a liquid which we can collect in the container at the end. Because water's got a higher boiling point, then it's still going to be remaining as a liquid at that point in time. So it only works if it's got a different boiling point to the other liquid it's mixed with. Hopefully at the end of this video we can now describe the process of simple distillation and fractional distillation and what we could use them to separate.